Welcome to Talking in Stations. It's Matterall. It's the 15th, the Ides of March today. And there was a big fight in F2O. It was an armor timer for a Keepstar. Looks like Pappy walked away with the strategic victory there, or the operational victory. I forget what you call them. I'm here with my friend Rendell. How's it going?
I'm doing really good today. How are you doing?
Really good. We're also here with Abby Rova again. How you doing, Abby?
I'm great. Thanks a million. How are you?
Good. All right, so we got that topic and more. Big announcement today. CCP has made Eve, well, it's a beta for Eve Anywhere, which means you can play Eve Online on your browser with a lot of conditions. We won't talk about it today because tomorrow it's going to be fully covered on the European show with McLeod and Caleb. But we just want to let you know that was announced today. And if you want, tune in tomorrow. They'll show you how to get on it, what the limitations are, and what it's all about. It's kind of exciting. We'll tell you why maybe a little more in the show when we talk about this just a little bit. Okay, also today, Abby, what was it about Eve Uni? What are they doing?
It was their 17th birthday today. Eve University, I'm sure many people know them and their group. It was the 17th birthday of their corp. So they had just a big celebratory event today.
All right, cool. Also, we're looking on Orca prices. All that today and whatever other news we can dig up. We'll be right back here with your visuals. Let's bring up the video. There it is. Okay, so today, this is our live coverage, thanks to Sully again. This is F2O, Keepstar that is in, it's Delve, right? Well, it says right there, it is Aquarius. It's on the edge of Delve, but it is actually Aquarius. This is a Goon Swarm Keepstar. This is part of the assault happening on Delve. And it looks like there were a ton of Titans in there ready for a big battle from the Imperium side of thing. There were calls from the leader of the Imperium Mittani to arm up. And then, as they were getting ready to get into this, there was a snafu Titan pilot that was supposed to bridge subcapital fleets to a system nearby. The system's jammed, so I think it was to a system nearby where they could come in or something like that. Ended up actually being fleet warped to the gate. And this is at 5TZ. So that kind of accident made it so that the bridging fleet had to, the subcapitals, had to just rush the gates and jump through the gates in order to fight on the other side of the gates, while the Titan recovered and got safe. And so that's what happened. I think they took a lot of casualties. So that snafu might have cost them some subcapitals in this fight. That is on the Imperium side. Therefore, you didn't see a lot of resistance for this. Pappy initially just loaded in with their super capitals on a Fortizar on grid or near the grid and sent out all their fighters towards the Keepstar, and the fighters did all the work. You can see them here in the video just slowly demolishing the Keepstar's armor. And now it's pushed into final timer, which will be, I think, 24 to 48 hours. And at that point, you will see this thing, if it's not defended, be destroyed. It's F2O. Do you guys see this at all, or were you aware that it happened?
Yeah, I knew it was happening. Unfortunately, it landed in my work hours, so I was kind of followed afar. Unfortunately, and I'm assuming this is a recording just for anyone watching right now. This isn't live either. So, yeah, I kind of watched as the ticker tape, I guess, kind of went by, and I saw the status happening. And actually, I didn't even know the status until I talked to you, Matterall, and you did say, yeah, the armor timer is gone. And so, yeah, like we talked about in the show, this is kind of that exit point it's Quirius, but it's that fake Delve corner of Quirius. Have you ever looked at a map? It doesn't actually, there's a pocket that doesn't connect into anywhere else in Quirius. It all connects back into Delve, but it's considered to be Quirius. So that's why that's an important section there. So, it was important that we, for me on my side, on the Pappy side, that we did that. It was important that Imperium tried to work at retaining it. I guess they were going to, and yeah, unfortunately, some things happened, which that's just unfortunate. It happened that way. I think people were also looking forward to a fight, which didn't happen.
Mhm.
So,
All right, so a little more light on this. I brought up an NC member. He's actually part of Destructive Influence and a friend of ours here at TIS. It is Vlad Setas. Or how do you say your name?
There's about 500 different ways people use. It doesn't really matter at this point.
I like my way, so we'll stick with it. You were in this fight, weren't you?
Yep, had a subcap, had a dread up here. Pretty uneventful, but I got a feeling that how F2 went is how most of the rest of the keeps are going to go. It's just going to be carriers and supers doing the carriers and super carrier fighters doing the legwork.
Yeah. That's what the question that I had earlier for the guys, our little think tank here, was what there were 100. How many Titans were in there? Do you know from Goonswarm?
I didn't keep count. My estimate pricing was probably 50, and that's a very rough estimate.
Oh, really? I thought there was like maybe 200. 100 to 200, like a lot.
That would have been like super capitals, faxes, and Titans.
Oh, got it. So that was everything, right?
Yeah, I mean they did have a sizable fleet. Sorry.
If you're curious about Imperium super numbers, I know Brisquebal was there with definitely one of his Titans, if not both of them. So he would probably be able to give you maybe a more accurate number as to how many total Imperium brought.
All right, but it wasn't nearly what I thought. That was probably all the forces that were in there.
Yeah, plus there was a Sino jammer too, so trying to get stuff in was difficult.
Yeah. Well, okay, so the question was there was enough there for a fight. You guys on the Pappy side didn't take the fight. Why not? Why not try to actually brawl it out? Hello?
Oh, yeah. From what I saw, it looked like nothing engaged the fighters. My guess again, this is from a line member perspective, not an FC, was with what we had on field, if goons tried to engage the fighter blob with subs or their own carrier or a massive amount of carrier fighters, then if anything broke out, it probably would have been sub v sub with maybe some dread or carrier support from both sides.
Yeah, do you think there was any kind of escalation path all the way up to something much bigger, something unexpected? Like this was the armor.
Not unless
right?
Really stupid. Really stupid. I don't think anything like an M2 would have happened unless like goons warped all their Titans over to the NC fort.
Mm-hmm.
I think if that happened, it may have been a massive fight, but it wouldn't have gotten to M2 level.
Yeah. All right. Well, so when is the final timer? Do you know? Is it 24 or 48 hours or in between there?
Let me look.
Yeah, we should have looked. We should have known that little fact before we started. Yeah. Anyway, so this was not. I wouldn't say it was uneventful, and I wouldn't even say it wasn't a fight. It was a fight. It was just it was a reinforce. I wouldn't call it a fight actually. So there was no fight. But that doesn't mean there wasn't a conflict. There wasn't an objective that was reached. It's secured. This is the armor timer. That's an important timer. This is when a defensive fleet will fight with the most amount of safety. There won't be a hull timer with Titans there because those Titans will either be asset safetied if they're blown up inside that structure, if they're parked, basically. Or if they're manned and parked, they will actually get ejected and be able to be attacked. Or they would be anchored on top of the Keepstar and lose their anchor and then be vulnerable to attack. So there's no scenario there that is good for a Titan pilot. So you won't see those unless they bring them all. There won't be any in the next fight. There may be a subcapital resistance force that works on the whole timer, or they may just say this one's lost. I mean, they have plenty of redundancy as far as Keepstars go, but this was an important Keepstar because it is the one that essentially was the last way out for super capitals. However, that path has been closed now for a few days because the jammers are preventing any Imperial super capitals from using these Keepstars to get to low sec to get out. And they've said they don't really want to get out. They want to do a last stand fight all together in 1DQ. Okay. Vlad, did you find when the next timer is? If not, it's not a problem. We can figure that out tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything right off the top of my head.
No worries. We know it's within that range, 24, 48 hours, so it'll be soon. Okay, next we want to look at, this is something we didn't bring up at the beginning, but let's see, if we go to Talking in Stations YouTube channel, which is youtube.com, Talking in Stations, you'll see here Jove Talks. Now, let me actually, 1 second. I'm going to turn off this black thing so it's just a little easier to read. All right, so you see there at the very top, there's Jove Talks. I think you can get in on that. Let's see. No, thumbnail stays the same side. Anyway, there is a really good discussion. It's supposed to be TED Talks, but for wormholers. So it's Jove Talks, a little inside joke there. It's not a lore-based thing at all. It's about wormholers telling you about what it's like in wormhole space. And so some of the topics that you would see there are find and seek the perfect wormhole. There's also, and that was by Sin Alarma, which is without alarm. I guess that's Spanish, unless it's Italian or something. Rules and Organization by Leo Dormer. Best Wormhole Mapper by Sinji Chonga. A Guide to Wormhole Diplomacy by Lore Darkfire. How to FC by Thor Isgard and Teddy GBYC. And finally, Wormhole Defense by Ashley Traynor. And then there's a Q&A. So all those topics in one session of Jove Talks. It's supposed to be like TED Talks again. And so they're very instructional with PowerPoints. We'll take a quick look at it. It's all chaptered out, so you can just skip to the chapter that you want. And I recommend it. We're getting a lot of good feedback on this. Even if you're not in wormholes, it's a pretty good presentation. So popular, actually, that we're going to do it again at some point soon. So look for a part 2 for that.
Oh, I can't wait. Thank you.
Yeah. Did you actually, were you able to see all of it or part of it?
Yeah, I did, yeah. I watched almost all of it. I just have the last 20 minutes, half an hour to finish off.
What do you think? Were you able to?
I loved it. I actually, I've lived in wormholes for a good while, so for me it was a little bit of a refresher on some of the mechanics I forgot. But I was just really well impressed with how clear and concise the information is, how it's presented, how it's, I mean, I've already shared this with a few people and they're like, oh my God, I didn't know this about wormholes, or I didn't realize that was a thing. You know, wormhole effects, statics, how they roll, how they work, how you fight on a wormhole. It's just great. It's really, really good. If anyone wants to learn about wormholes, maybe you think, well, you want to move into a wormhole, you want a day trip, or you just want to go in there and get some good fights, or do some of the PvE in there, this stuff is fantastic. This is such a good primer. These 2.5 hours, if you watch this, it'll save you hours and hours of pain down the road if you want to go into wormholes.
Wow, it's a hell of an endorsement.
Yeah, well, I mean, and some of those pilots, like I know some of them guys, they're fantastic pilots, great guys. So hats off to everyone involved in doing this, the Ronin crew, and all these individual pilots. from all these different alliances getting together for this. It was great.
Yeah. Oh, Izuki was there too. He was one of the.
He was kind of one of the co-hosts.
Right. So check it out. It's on Talking in Stations YouTube channel. You can just see that at youtube.com/Talking in Stations. It's called Jove Talks, Volume 1, basically. There'll be another one soon. Cool. Okay, so another thing that we wanted to look at here was Eve Uni had a birthday. Was it a birthday or an anniversary?
It's both, right?
Yeah, I guess it would be the organization's anniversary or birthday.
It's its birthday and it's the anniversary of its founding.
All right. So what happened here? Because I see Chribba's involved.
Yeah. They had a couple of events during the day. They were all out celebrating, massive fireworks. They had some internal parties and roams and fun. Chribba came out. He was he recently had this monument put in the game of him for the Fed Navy GP. So
well, let's be clear. He didn't put it in. CCP put it in.
Yeah. This isn't what he's been building with all the ore he's been mining.
Exactly.
CCP put this statue in, like Katia Say got a statue, right? These players that have done great things for the community. So he gets his statue now, and he came out and he maybe you might not know, but capital ships aren't allowed in HiSec, and they used to be. And he's got one of the last remaining capital ships still in HiSec. It's a dreadnought. He uses it to mine Feldspar, and it's nicknamed the Veldnought.
Yeah.
So he came out and he posed beside his statue. Everyone was shooting fireworks at him, and he gave a bit of a Q&A to the Eve Uni group.
Oh, that's cool. It's a combination of current events, legendary players, and a legendary organization. I think they were 17 years old now. Think about that. 17 years of consistent organization and knowledge gathering, not from the same people, but the same spirit of people that have helped out that place over the years.
Yeah, the external metagame has really helped them. I mean, their original website, was a simple wiki, but they really took advantage as an organization. So much so that my personal story with Eve Uni is I didn't know that it wasn't actually a third party or an external organization. I actually thought it was a university associated with the game. And so I was trying to find in-game things that would lead me to the information. And it took me so long to actually wrap my head around that, no, these are just players. And so when I realized they were players, I kind of it really clicked a whole lot of the metagame for me. And, they were, kind of promoting themselves in all various avenues. And I think they've really rolled with the times, helped set the times, and really have been critical in the success of EVE Online overall because of just the volume of information of how to play the game, how to find the things, their fleets, training fleets, just raw information. They've adapted and managed to be very successful. So for, happy birthday to them and another 17 years of success.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like the way this all fused together. There's a lot of things to celebrate here. That's pretty neat. I'll say it's another thing about Eve Uni. I mean, we could do a whole episode on Eve Uni, and maybe we'll invite them over to talk about themselves and what they do. But they have a tradition of guarding a lot of knowledge and trying to keep it updated, which takes a ton of work. And one of the interesting things is that because they did such a good job, we think that was part of the reason that CCP decided that they didn't need to maintain their own wiki. Like they said, these players done a better job than us at it, so we'll close down our wiki and use theirs, basically, or something. But I think there were players that lamented that and actually saved the entire wiki that CCP had put together. A lot of it's lore-based, some of it's player-oriented, groups and stuff like that, but CCP is loath to make any kind of interpretations of the players' organizations, their worth, are they good, are they bad, that kind of stuff. So they try to just when they talk about players, talk about them in a very factual way, not with any interpretation, because the metagame is so strong. In other words, the PR game in EVE Online is incredibly strong. It's part of the warfare, which makes it hard for CCP to weigh in on anybody because they don't want to be seen to be taking sides or endorsing any group. So the wiki then, I think, went to EVE Uni. They were one of the guardians of the CCP wiki as opposed to as in addition to their own wiki. And I think there are other players that did the same thing. So again, guardians of knowledge, 17 years of doing that. That's great. All right. Let's see here.
For new players. Yeah, so for new players and even experienced players, you should bookmark this at home, wherever, and be prepared to go to EVE Uni, their wiki first, whenever you're looking for any information about this game. It's a great place to start, just to give them a little extra props.
Right. All right. Let's actually jump into the last part. We're actually going to have like what do you call it? We're going to have a shorter show. No, we're going to have a shorter show. Like this is good because last week we did something like 190 hours. No. 19 hours.
19 hours sounds a little more.
I don't know. I forget.
It maybe felt like 190.
It wasn't 19 hours. 190 minutes. Who knows? We did 12 shows.
941 minutes.
941 minutes of content. Not all of it was great, but a lot of it was. And
that was before the weekend show as well, which was another 2.5 hours.
Okay, great. So we probably topped 1,000. Anyway, we've been busy. Why have we been busy? Because we have a lot of great people that are showing up, a lot of great people that are helping us, and a lot of great guests that donate their time and their knowledge. And also, we know there's increased demand. The Talking In Station has really never been so vibrant. So there's so much work being done behind the scenes, but there's so much desire for it outside. So it's just what do they call it in business? The flywheel effect. Like if you do it long enough and you push hard enough, it starts to get easier and easier and easier, and then you start getting bigger and bigger gains with less and less actual muscle. We're really experiencing that right now, so that's great. I want to combine this with, we're looking for people at Talking In Stations because we do need to expand. We do have we have some projects that we're working on that we're very excited about that I think will really benefit the EVE Online community. So we're looking for people of any discipline, whether you're a project manager or a manager, or if you're an artist or if you're a writer. We're looking for all that kind of stuff. Okay. Last thing we want to talk about was, first let me introduce, Nick Bison. He's a friend of ours. How you doing, Nick?
Oh, another good day in EVE.
And today we actually introduce you to a new person, Dusk. How you doing, Dusk?
Not too bad. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Vlad is still here, right?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, so you three guys, let's talk about minerals and let's talk about scarcity. Actually, first let's meet Dusk. Tell us about yourself a little bit because you know about this issue.
I am, I'm relatively new here. I am essentially the nobody in EVE. I'm the little guy.
Hi, guy.
I think I started playing in 2009. Played for a couple months, and then I discovered I really like mining. And so within a year, I was flying 2 characters on going up the industrial progression chain. After that, I got a friend that invited me to Nullsec, and he was with Intrepid Crossing, and I was out there for a little while with those guys back when they controlled the Cobalt Edge. Quickly found out I'm a bit of a Care Bear, and I don't really like Sov Warfare, so I went back to HiSec. Took a break, played some other games, came back. I flew with Signal Cartel for a very short period of time just to learn the ropes of wormholes.
Mm-hmm.
Early topic. There's so much knowledge to learn there, so I figured what better way to do it than a group that is dedicated to it. And because, again, I'm not the greatest PvPer in the world, I'm like, let's play it a different way. So I flew a Signal Cartel and learned the ropes there for about a year, and then again moved back to HiSec because that's basically what I'm attached to as a player. I really like the PvE aspect of Eve. I really enjoy running missions. I like anomalies. I like HiSec mining. And I know that sounds crazy for most of the player base, but that's really what gets me going.
I'm starting to like this guy.
Yeah, right? Compatriot.
But yeah, I'm the little voice. What got me into this was I'm not sure the time frame. A week ago, 2 weeks ago, when they were talking about the Orca and the Rourke wall changes, I'm like, oh, I fly an Orca. Okay, now I've got skin in the game.
Mhm.
Okay, how do I get in this conversation?
All right. Well, this is the right place, talking in stations. Let me introduce Vlad again. You're from NC Dot, and you've mined before, right? Every NC Dot guy has mined at least once.
Yeah, I used to do before the war moon mining with Rorquals. I managed not to lose any, and I think I only got tackled once. So I guess that makes me better than the average bear.
We were joking one time with CCP Muppet Hunter. He's one of the guys that's kind of in charge of the organization of developers, and he said something really interesting. If you want to see it, it's on. I won't pull it up, but Talking in Stations again on YouTube. There's a Eve Vegas series, and look up Muppet Hunter. Great interview, super interesting, a very interesting guy, and he talks about how. I said, well, evading people. I'm not a PvPer. I just evade people when I try to go through. And he goes, that's PvP too. And I've always liked that. So I always think that we should co-opt the name PvP as player versus player, what it actually is. Do you fight in the marketplace? Are you playing cat and mouse? Because that is player versus player, the cat versus the mouse. Which one are you? They're both valid in that scenario. If you escape, you're PvP. You've outplayed a predator. So I always really like that way of looking at things. But anyway, Nick, you're also a miner. People know who you are because you've been on a few times. You three guys, and Rundle, of course, or Abby, who's still with us. What do you guys think? We've been looking at Hulk prices go up. Abby, you saw that. What was going on?
Yeah, I mean, Hulk prices spiked, and there could be a number of things to explain it. There could be nothing to explain it. A couple of, I suppose, tinfoil hat theories will be tomorrow's a patch day. CCP Retari was talking 2 weeks ago about upcoming Rorqual and Orca changes. If they're going to make a change as big as this, they're probably going to drop it with no heads up, so they can't be accused of being biased and affecting the market. So it could be maybe someone's got the inside scoop. The more logical reasoning would be that for a long time the prices of these ships has been undervalued, and actually you were losing money to make them. I suppose the average, say, Tech 2 mining barge would have been selling for in and around the mid 200s. It cost closer to 3 to actually make it, so this could be more of a natural price market correction. It could also be one person buying up a large stockpile for an alliance or a large corp or something. It's very hard to know, but it's interesting with. It's interesting in the larger context of the scarcity changes, what Retari was talking about recently, and we know that they will be touched on them, possibly in the next quadrant.
Well, what did he say? Do you guys remember?
I believe, I'm open to correction here if anyone can remember the exact quote, but it was along the lines of, we're aware they're a problem. He would like to see them return to their more natural role of boosting a fleet of people and not being able to outmine the actual mining barges.
Uh-huh. What's that say to you guys?
I'm digging that because I've been building all the exhumers for more than 10 years. And yeah, I pretty much had to stop for a while because of the cost. It just was not profitable to sell a Hulk for 225 million or a Mackinac for 190. Right now, Hulks are going about 3.25-ish, maybe a little more depending on if you can get a deal. So, and I guess part of my mindset goes back to the Hulk as a paper tank now, where it did not originally. So it's kind of an interesting balance to spend that kind of money. Yes, it mines more, but boy, is it fragile.
Yep. That's the underlying flaw with a lot of the mining line is CCP played a very delicate balance of how much it can hold, its mining efficiency, and its tank. And the way they've evolved over time, most are extremely fragile when you compare them to the task they're doing and the fact that they have minimal armaments. I mean, you're talking a couple of drones, they barely even have guns. So that's part of the appeal of the Orca. You're trading, because the Orca, as far as I know, I've never been able to get it to catch up to my fully boosted Hulk. I fly both, one on one pilot, one on the other, and you're taking an efficiency loss when you fly the Orca. It might be able to outmine the skiff, I think, but the skiff flies with a single laser. As far as I know, it
Not
doesn't.
anymore. They don't. They originally, the skiff was 1, Mackinac 2, Hulk 3.
Yep.
They all had the same cycle time. Now they all have 2 lasers. The difference is the cycle time. And no, a single Orca cannot, with 5 mining drones, if you have max skills, you're only pulling 230 M3 a minute per drone. In over an hour, that's going to be roughly 56,000 M3, where your Orca can hold 250. It's like, no.
Well, so that is the trade-off. The raw cycle time versus how often do I have to fly back to the station versus defense. Like that is the equation the miners care about. That's it. Those are the only 3 things.
And if you look at an old miner like me, and I'm a lazy miner. Let me let you finish your thought. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I'm just like, the appeal to me is I'm less susceptible to single pilot ganks, and I can sit in the belt and I don't have to fly to the station a dozen times over and over and over again. I'm okay taking the efficiency loss because that's the appeal of the Orca to me as a pilot that flies it. But go ahead.
I have a slightly different take because, like I said, I'm lazy. I'm also very cautious. I don't use Hulks because I don't like the small cargo hold, even though they have the best uh, draw of ore per cycle or the shortest cycle time. And I do multi-box with 4 Mackinacs because I can put a fair tank on each of them, and I'll sacrifice a mining laser upgrade for more tank. But the first thing I do is the Orca goes out, the 4 Mackinacs come out. The first thing the Orca does is lock the Mackinacs because he's got a remote shield repper on it. Divide out, and it basically takes. If you look at fully loaded Orca without cargo expanders, you're looking at 258,000 M3 with 4 Mackinacs, each with 35,000 M3 ore holds. You're looking at just shy 398,000 M3. Takes me 52 minutes to fill that. And then, because I'm lazy, I dock everything up. I go have a smoke, get a fresh drink, come back out and do it again.
Just real quick, I found my notes on the CCP Rattati interview. He said that Rourke's did everything instead of one thing really well. Right now they do everything instead of one thing really well, and he wants to go back to their original role as fleet boosters, the same as Orcas. That's the high level vision. He says they have aces up the sleeve to give them a special role, but that's happening in 2021 soon. That was his comment.
But
Soon.
so Skyhawk Everhart had wrote
Trademark.
Yeah, Skyhawk Everhart wrote. He said it wouldn't be in the first quadrant, though. Is there?
No, because we're currently in the first quadrant, but that quadrant is coming to an end at the end of this month. So it could be in the next quadrant.
But does that preclude it from showing up tomorrow?
Not necessarily. You see, that's the thing. They would never. I don't think they would leak this. I mean, it could be. They could start to slowly change it. We've seen this. They've done small iterations quickly. We saw this with the ESS and the DBS changes. They introduced the system. They looked at it for a month. They did a small tweak. They looked at it. They tweaked. So maybe they're going to adjust the mining percentages or the cycle times and begin that process maybe.
Yeah, I would, for like Rorqual, probably. I was looking up some other storylines too. Rorqual seems to be the one that is most focused on, but they got to do Orca as well. So if you look at the kind of the where those two ships kind of collide in terms of skills and the role, they might make a couple of small adjustments now, which are minor for the Roricle, but significant for the Orca, but overall aren't big changes. And then the next big change will be on the Roricle itself. So maybe that's where the Orca, is kind of like, well, from an Orca pure point of view, it's going to be a reasonable size change to who knows, right? It depends on what they get that ace up their sleeve is. That's how I read the comments and took that. And we've seen that elsewhere in other ship types where they're really targeting the big end ship, but the smaller end ship that shares gets a kind of a bigger percentage change or a bigger change because the big change isn't supported on the lower tier ship. And so kind of that's where I think that's going.
Yeah. I was looking for the
There was a couple of comments in chat, if you don't mind jumping in to address. And I think it's important. Okay, the first one, and I'd screw his name up if I said it, but it's IXZ and
That's
bunch
what
of letters.
That's what we're known for.
So, the Orca does not. It can give mining bonuses or shield, whatever command you want to put on it, but it does not receive its own. So its mining drones do not benefit from that at all. Dream Packs 7 mentions, why is every solution to Eve multi-boxing? I didn't want to give that impression. If I did, my apologies to that. A lot of times I'm rolling out my Orca, or Orcas plural, to boost the rest of the core while they mine. And then I'm just turned into a glorified hauler on that because it's a group effort. And I just thought that was important to, let you know that it's not always multi-box. I do that when I'm lonely and have nobody to play with.
Well, can I touch on that one for a second before you talk about other ones?
Sure.
I'm not a multi-boxer. I have 2 accounts, but usually it's just the Orca in space, slowly mining by itself while I'm watching YouTube or reading something or working on something else. So I don't. That's why I'm advocating for, and I'm not actually advocating against changing the Orca. You need something that appeals to the solo miner. The same type of individual just made that comment. That's the niche the current industrial lineup doesn't play into, and that's really what I would advocate for. But I want to say that I'm not a multi-boxer when I mine. I park the Orca and I harvest one belt 5 drones at a time. So it's not always.
Go on.
And McBeggar says, it's like game design. Yeah, you are correct in that, and I do agree. But come on out, get in a small core that does mining. They'll be happy to boost you. It'll increase your efficiency, and make friends. That's kind of what we do.
Fair point. It is a fair point. It's just not what I enjoy.
Oh,
Go ahead, Abby.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that is, really there's 2 types of Orca mining. There is the one guy with maybe 1 account, maybe 5 accounts, mining on his Orcas because he takes the efficiency hit so he can do other stuff or it's not as tasking. And then there's the guys out there in the Orcas boosting their corp mates of 5 or 10 or 20 miners doing mad mining operations. And they're both valid, legitimate gameplays. And they both need to be respected when we address the Orca changes,
Yeah.
I just love the idea of the Orca booster. 1 Orca, 2 Orcas boosting 20 miners. I mean, that looks so cool in an asteroid belt. I love that.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on from the Orca. Again, we're looking at the Orca because we assume something's going to change with it that would make it less desirable to be used as a miner, and that would put more pressure, more buying pressure on ships like the Hulk or mining barges that are meant to mine a lot quickly. They just can't hold a lot of it like the Orca can. So since there was a little bit of a price adjustment we were looking at, could it possibly signal that there's something coming tomorrow about the Orcas? We know something's coming. It may not come tomorrow, but it's coming soon. But there's another thing I wanted to ask you guys about. We'll go around again. I'll start with Vlad since he hasn't talked yet, but that is the whole scarcity. I want your guys' opinion on it and how you've adapted or what you think of it. It's up to you. What do you think, Vlad, about scarcity?
I think that it's something that was necessary for game balance. It's one of those of the medicine sucks, but you have to take it. I think that ultimately, once it gets down to where resources become dynamic and you have to spread back out again, then they could start reintroducing it and making it less painful but more risky, which just seems to be the case with how nullsec should be, which should be high risk, high reward. I think that we may get back to the point where we're somewhat, at least with tier 1 with tech 1 minerals, somewhat how they were previously, at least in like ANOMs, but they'll be in where you have to go outside of your super umbrella to find anything worth mining.
Has it, just a quick follow-up, has it changed your behavior? Have you completely stopped mining, or do you care to mine anymore, or like?
I will see what happens after the war. I haven't done anything during the war. I've been focused on it.
That's it, right? Okay.
And honestly, that's how I think most people in NCR have been. We're completely focused on the war. We stockpiled pre-war so that everybody had cash. Like the weekend before the war, for instance, we did a massive moon mining blitz where anybody that joined would have stocked up several billion ISK in one weekend.
Yeah, worth of ore, you mean, to sell, or
worth of R64 moon goo, of course, with buybacks available and buybacks at good prices.
So they paid you a good price to put money in your pocket so you could go to war, kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this was 100% geared to putting ISK into individual members' wallets. It wasn't taxed for Alliance or Corp or anything like that.
Yeah. Nick?
J-Rocks in JX Ross, sorry, in chat said, why would you train into a Rourke just to boost? Originally, that's all you did with a Rourke was boost. It wasn't until the changes that they became a mining platform. So if you were heading down that path today, and I'm not one to give advice because I generally suck at it, I'd hold off till we know what these changes are before I'd toss any hard-earned ISK at the skill books right now to see if that's going to be what you want to do.
Rundle, and AF says this, AF 1690, he says boost and compress ore. Rundle, do you remember Rorquals at all? Did you ever have experience with them?
I've never flown one. I've been around them and been in fleets. They used to have compression modules, I think, right?
Yeah.
So you would drop them in, and they would run it, and they would compress it for you.
You had to go into industrial mode. You had to have the blueprint.
You have to have the blueprint,
right.
yeah.
For that skill, and then you could compress them. Yeah.
Right. So it was a whole chain to get to that point, right? And so I think the idea was nullsec. You would get one or two people interested in doing that who'd willing to do the training, and they would be that pilot, and that would be like your mining command ship, just like it was intended. Do the boosting and the compression and make your
you cut out there
a little easier, right? And that would be what that role was. But they made some changes there. They allowed compression in all the citadels and the roles to change. This over many years, right? Mm-hmm. Those things just kind of adapted, and I think it steamrolled for the Rorqual and the pilots who were meant to have this single role.
Sorry to interrupt you. We're going to have to wrap it up quick, but AFF says something I really like. Again, he says, I used to sit in my Rourke in an ice belt and compress ore while boosting. And I love that idea of, that's a mining captain, right? Like he's taking care of some stuff while the fleet's out there mining. But Rorquals, in my opinion, were used for a multitude of things. But by the end, I think by the time Nick really refers to them, they were really only good for boosting, or that was their main thing. But initially, they were supposed to be set piece ships that a fleet could form around. So it could carry clones, it could carry extra mining barges. So those clones, if you jump to that clone, you could jump out in a mining barge and start mining. So you could basically, because this ship, the Rorqual, had a jump drive as well, you could jump and it had a pretty nice range, if I'm not mistaken. It had a short range. Get out to where you wanted to be in deep space, and then your pilot friends could actually clone into your ship and take out ships, then mine all day, all night. They would come back, deposit the ships back, and jump out. And that was kind of how it was supposed to be used. It also had the compression stuff to it. And here's the thing, in Sob Warfare a long time ago, the way you controlled territory was by controlling the moons. And the way you controlled the moons was to put a tower on it to claim it. It's like a flag on a moon. So if a system had 4 moons, it could easily be controlled because you only needed 4 towers, but you could also flip it relatively easy. But there were systems that had like 25 moons or more. And those were hard to essentially like put towers up on. The Rorqual was great for that duty because it could avoid gates and just jump all over the place, and it had a huge cargo, so it could carry a lot of those. I used to call them sticks. So it was good in Sob Warfare in that case. It was a working man's ship to do the logistics, to do the kinds of things in Sob that needed to be done that a military type ship didn't need to be wasted for. So there was a lot of things it did. Okay.
One thing
go ahead.
Skyhawk in chat mentions is a minor correction, but the Rourke had a very long jump range, same as jump freighters always had.
It did. Okay, I was wrong about that. I thought it got nerfed down to like 5 light years, but then they fixed it or something. I don't know. I was wrong.
Nope.
It was long, right? It was long. Here's the other thing. It was a poor man's jump freighter, as Plague says there, Plague SD. He's right about that because you can park it in a station, and you can't park super capitals in a station. So it could also travel in high sec. No, it couldn't travel in high sec, could it?
No, it could not. It's a standard cap.
You're right. Okay, but it could park in a station. That was one of the things it could do.
Yes.
The big advantage to the Rourke with hauling was you could tank it like crazy. It'd haul about a third that of a jump freighter, and it had the same range and fatigue reduction as a jump freighter.
Yeah, even before fatigue, that's kind of when I was using them. It's a long time.
If you go back to the trade-off conversation,
yeah,
it was originally balanced around you couldn't effectively mine, so you had all this extra force multiplication that applied directly against your own fleet. It's hard really to not discuss the conversation around its independent mining capability, because if you go back to efficiency, that thing will outstrip a Hulk. And I think that's really where the conversation has to take place on that specific asset is, where does CCP draw a line where this is where a single ship should be able to mine on its own and balance everything below that? And then, but you also have to justify the investment in that capability. So how do you still maintain it being a force multiplier with its cost investment? Those are, specific to the Rorqual, those are the 2 areas I look at for that platform.
Jump onto what Dusk said on that, because I remember distinctly, and I wish I could find the clip, but it was back, and I don't know if it was in a clip or if it was in the EVE forums, where CCP stated that when folks wanted additional mining capability, this was 2008-ish, where they flat out said, nothing's ever going to outmine a Hulk. Well, that ain't true.
Yeah. Well, I think when they... we'll end on Rorqual stuff here in a second. When the Rorqual was first transitioned over to a solo mining ship because of the excavators, we did a whole show with miners on that, and they were not little people, just people who work out in the asteroid belt, and they were saying that it would be able to Hulk like 5.5 times a single Hulk. And so they did all the math and all the crunching, and they were right. And I think it's been nerfed way back since then. I'm not sure where it sits now, how many times it duplicates that. But anyway, we didn't. Nick, it's your turn to talk about scarcity, if it affects you. I think we've already covered this with you. And then Dusk.
Well, a good byproduct of scarcity has been, I've actually made a couple of in-game relationships with people in different regions that I don't mine in, down in Derelict and the whole Minmatar area, to where, hey, we're compressing and selling stuff to each other and transporting. So, yeah, it's different, but I kind of like moving stuff around, so that doesn't really bother me. But it's what the scarcity has done for me is, yes, I'm mining considerably less, but I'm trading more and I'm meeting more people again, and I'm enjoying that.
Awesome. What about you, Dusk? Scarcity. This is something that is close to your heart, isn't it?
Yeah. So how do I say this? I've thought about scarcity quite a bit. Ultimately, I hated its initial implementation. But I've come around on it quite a bit when I stepped back and actually thought about the implications. So all for it. I think it's actually a really good move, and it is a pain point for a lot of the community. But I think the ultimate goal is quite a healthy one. As long as you can successfully make that big PR argument of it's the long-term health of the game. I'm also really concerned about how do you prevent gaining abundance again. And so I've thought a bit about that aspect. I started looking at larger assets in the game, above, well above Battleship, really at the station level when they removed pauses, and they added upwell structures. And the community's not going to like me when I say this. I think part of how you limit the potential for abundance in the future is to make very large assets more relative to their mass in the game and diversify their supply pipeline, just like they're talking about doing with Titans. If you look at the price point between, I'm going to butcher because I don't have one, the low end upwell structures, it's something like 30 times the mass of a T2 battleship, but it costs, and sometimes what the inflated Marauder market right now costs half as much as a Marauder.
Mm.
But again, if you go back to that force multiplication, what's the value of that, the mass of that structure vice the mass of that ship? It's you're able to dock in it. You can have production capability. You're able to run a market out of it. You're able to run clones out of it. You have tether capability. And the larger you go up in the structures, it gets even more insane when you start talking about Keepstars. So I don't think you have to jump the price extreme, but I think that if you look at the cost of large alliance size assets, bumping some of the requirements for those pieces of infrastructure might actually be a way that you limit this from ever happening in the game in the future.
That's interesting.
Where the flex point is on that, I don't know. I don't have the raw data to look through it at that level. CCP has it, I don't. But I think my concern is how do you prevent us from having to go through this austerity again 5 years from now or 10 years from now? How do you maintain a healthy ecosystem once they've established demand? Because that's ultimately the market. It's supply and demand. You have to balance both sides.
Do you rationalize that back to real world dollars though through Plex purchase and sales? Because a Keepstar, for example, is like about $3,500 right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. But if you rationalize it back to real world, truly real world, if you're looking at an average player being able to own something like we'll keep my example, T2 battleship, right? You want to fly $2 billion or 2 billion ISK Marauder. We'll equate that to a house. Does the average person that owns a house, can they afford a skyscraper? Should they be able to afford an Empire State Building? Should small businesses be able to afford an Empire State Building? So these really are extremely large assets. So should a 2 or 3 person corp or a single player multi-boxer be able to afford an upwell structure? I think is a fundamental question. Should they be maintained as a corporate asset in large alliances? And then you're dealing with a price tag that's appropriate to that. Which there's a second pain point is now I've introduced, okay, well, I'm a solo player or a small corp. What's my progression? Then you get into arguments like, well, bring back pauses, and there's a whole rabbit hole associated with that. But
I want my own
fine.
station. I want my own
fine.
station.
Yes, that's the appeal.
Right? I
But
just want
isn't
my
it
own
realistic?
station. It's an appeal, right? They sell it.
Yep,
You can
you're
have your
correct.
own station.
You're correct.
I think
But
that the problem, if I may say, is they went too big. If I put down an Astor house, I feel like this house is too big for me. I just wanted a little cave, and the
Just want
mobile
a cottage.
Yeah, I just
want a cottage on the edge of the lake, right?
Maybe there's an opportunity in flex structures for something like that.
That's what I thought they'd build, but all they did was the mobile depot, which is too small. It's like, where's the Goldilocks?
Yeah, that's the U-Haul van to get you to the small cottage, but where's the cottage?
We got to move on.
I mean, though, what
ahead.
do you see mobile depots used for other than spam or occasionally being abandoned?
Basically to trade fittings or whatever. Last, I guess, Abby, tell us a little bit about scarcity in nullsec, because we've talked about high sec. You want to fill that in?
Yeah. So in high sec, obviously, it's stripped some of the minerals from the belts.
Yeah.
In the areas that had moons, a lot of the miners, the big fleets of miners, the amount of asteroids in the belts became so little that it wasn't even worth cycling a Rorqual, or in an Orca, you'd have to change asteroids every 2 minutes. So what has happened is people have been mining the minerals in the belts less, your basic T1 minerals, but they have swapped over to doing more moon mining, which is one of the reasons why in this area of scarcity we have seen Tech 1 hulls, ship hulls, increase in price, and the Tech 2 ships have kind of stayed steady and if not dropped in price. And one of that is the miners swapping from the less available and the more scarce Tech 1 minerals over to the moon goo, which is fascinating. So it's while there is a scarcity in the Tech 1 stuff, the miners who just want to mine and that's their play style have been nibbling on rocks and kept busy.
Oh, good. Okay, any last comments on mining before we close out?
I got, if you don't mind,
please.
Just one quick experiment for the panel here. A one-line answer on what scarcity means to you in EVE Online. Start with Abby at the top.
I hate being alphabetical. To me,
primary Abby.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, scarcity means correcting the out of control economy, the both money economy, the super economy, the capital proliferation. Scarcity, I like it. I want it. I don't mind sucking it up for 2 years to balance the game a little bit more and have a healthier universe going forward for the next 10 years.
Okay. What about you, Dusk?
Proper demand is really what it boils down to for me. That actually having a healthy market through proper demand.
Okay, Matterall?
Me?
Yeah, sure.
Come back to me. I have no idea.
All right, Nick. I'm just the host here. What do I know? Nick, go ahead.
I'm a lot with Abby on that. I'll suffer a hell of a lot of pain to get this whole thing back on track, to where we have a solid balance again.
Okay, Vlad.
I would say it's resetting the economy, especially the null economy, and yeah, it sucks short term, but long term, it's necessary.
Okay, so I've had this conversation with a few people. Number one answer isn't any of the answers you gave. Number one answer is, frankly, they're just decreasing in its entirety across the universe the volume of minerals available. That's what the first thought is. And then people think about it and go, no. It's really just about the placement of minerals and how hard it is to get. And the answer, is kind of in the middle somewhere. It really means there's 4 answers here. There's 2 more I gave you. The scarcity, talking about the scarcity, I think with a definition is a little dangerous. Not to put you on the spot for how you ran this segment, but because it really actually means something different to everyone. And if you look at the prices, sometimes the scarcity really drives prices. And you look at the mineral prices in JITA, tritanium is down to like a 1-year low. It's not in terms of price because there's actually way more tritanium out there because it's all in high sec, and now you have every high sec miner mining tritanium. But the other minerals are up 150 to 200%, which means they've gone up 1.5 to 2 times their price over the last 5 months. So the scarcity is the availability of the high-end minerals that drive the high-end ships, which drive the high-end prices for really kind of what Abby was saying. Those larger structures, like Dusk was also talking about, and stuff. The standard ships, the things that take a lot of tritanium, I don't think are seeing the impact of value because there's a ton of tritanium around. And so it really just moved the availability of certain minerals. It didn't mean that the game itself suffered. It's just the mechanisms for getting them. That's for me the real element of the scarcity. It doesn't mean the game somehow has less. It's just the availability of it is less. It's still out there if you want to take the risk. And I suspect over the next year to two, we will discover methods to obtain the minerals and accept the risk and manage the danger of getting those minerals. We just haven't worked it out yet as a community.
That's a great point. And actually, there's already like a lot of null-sec alliances before these changes. You'd want to be as deep in null as possible to get away from low-sec. And now null alliances are moving closer to that low-sec, where those good minerals that you talked about, those rare minerals are. They want to be able to mine them under their super umbrellas. They want to have that PvP come to them to increase their DBS rewards and get the good DBS rewards on low-sec.
Yep. And you have this war kind of interrupting the natural player development, what's what I'm looking for? Where the player think tank, right? Where the players figure it out. There's usually a natural element where you get so many people, but with the very large alliances at war, there's a bit of a pause on that side. Not completely. So I just think there's a slight of a delay. It will get there, and we're starting to see that now. We'll see how that plays out. I think there's just that subtext through the universe, through the wars, that is really playing out, and we'll see it amp up. These changes to the Orca and the Oracle will again drive another nail into the side of the alliances of, look, this is how you're going to have to go get the minerals. This is where you'll have to go.
Yeah,
and I'm excited to see how that's going to play out.
Rundle, you caught me off guard because it's like, do you believe in God kind of question. It's just it's too big to like be like, yes, no, I don't know. So you said in one sentence, what does scarcity mean to you? That sort of thing?
What does this Eve scarcity thing mean to you?
It's kind of like anti-gluttony is what it feels like to me. And there are so many variables for me that I don't know if it'll work or not. I think it is definitely working. The shallow going into when I look at the map, right, the further from the center you get, the deeper the water is. And the center is the island, let's say. That the further out you swim, the more, the bigger, the less touched coral reef is, and the more beneficial it is to be out there. And if you can protect yourself while you're out there from everything, then you can benefit and have huge benefits. That's been the game this entire time. And it just feels like they went from that model, the further you go, the deeper you go, the better off you are, to, well, with the exception of wormholes, which kind of mixed everything up, but to a real diverse ecology of geography. Like, where do you put yourself? And I really like looking at Fraternity. I keep mentioning them, but I'm always looking at what people are doing that's interesting and that's new and it's a trend for the future. And I do see what Fraternity is doing is putting themselves in shallow nullsec, imposing on lowsec right in front of them. They have good market access, and because it's Caldari space, they have good access to Poshvin. They are placing a lot of bets and diversifying. And if one works, they're going to benefit. And if 2 or 3 work, they're really going to benefit. If 1 or 2 don't work, they're not going to get hurt as much. Like, they're really diversifying. So when I think about what Fraternity's doing, and I think what other leaders are looking at and wanting to do, I think about the rhetoric of this war and what happens after the war. And I just feel like everybody that's fighting this war is saying the Blue Donut is going to break up, and then you'll be sorry, Tess, that you teamed up with PL and NC. When I hear that kind of talk, I realize, wow, there's a lot of people that don't even get it yet. They don't understand this. It's been going on for about 2 years, ever since Triglavians were coming, I think. Ashtarothi was one that talked to me about this sort of stuff. We said this game is changing for a different player. So it's a much bigger question than scarcity. One sentence, for me, it's an entire ecosystem, not only of what's in the game, but of the kind of players that CCP wants to service without getting rid of their veterans accidentally. That's just how deep it goes.
Yeah, good. All right. Well, that was my there you go. There's my one question.
All right. Well, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so last thing I want to talk about, I could bring it up one more time here. Let me just share my screen. This is the very last thing. I just wanted to show you guys, and I'm cheating a little bit here, but here, there it is. Yay, there it is. So that is a Chrome browser. You can play EVE Online in your Chrome browser. I'm not going to tell you much about it here. This is very interesting because it brings EVE Online to players that don't have to download their, the big old download into their computer, but also it's light, so you don't, you don't have to have high technology to use it. The technology's, all the visuals are being crunched somewhere else. So you could play this on a laptop or even a device like a phone. I don't know if it works on a phone or an iPad.
Chromebook, maybe.
Yeah, Chromebook. I think it does work like on an iPad and that sort of stuff. But the idea here is fantastic because, and this is all I want to say, the timing is EVE Echoes is having a hard time right now with a new insurance policy where you recover a lot of what you get blown up, which means that this goes against the nature of EVE Online. A lot of players are really rejecting that. Not all of them, but a lot. And so there is an opportunity for CCP to actually lure players from EVE Echoes into EVE Online that don't have the technology, don't have the computers to play EVE Online. They could actually participate this way. And that's interesting. All right. More on that tomorrow at 1900. Watch the Euro show with McLeod and Caleb. They'll go over all the details. You'll want to check that out. I want to thank Abby and Dusk and Rundle and Nick and Vlad, who actually took off. He had to leave. I want to thank all you guys for helping us out today. Well,
yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Thank you.
Watch the Euro show tomorrow. Find out about the browser game version.
All right, good. Rundle, we'll have to give you like a script to talk us out so you could do the ending.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We will try to find a raid for you. Take care. We will see you. Actually, I don't know if you may not see a show tomorrow because we're thinking of cutting back the Newsday shows. We've been doing one every day. The decision is not made yet. We'll talk about it after this program. But we're thinking of Monday and Thursday will be the Newsday show, which you're watching today. Tuesday and Friday will be the Euro show. And then Wednesday will be ad hoc. Could be just what we had today, a little discussion among players that hang out. If you hang out at Talking Stations Discord with us and we get to know you, we'll bring you on. Or no show at all on a Wednesday, so we would rest twice a week as opposed to just once a week. We're trying to look at our schedule here. We have a lot of cool stuff to talk to you about in the future, so stay tuned. But we are juggling our schedule right now. And as always, give us feedback on the YouTube video or write me at Talking Stations on the Discord. Okay? Thanks very much, guys. We'll see you next time. Take care.